What's going on, people? We here. My boy in success. Um, First time live on the channel. I'm waiting on B. I don't think B's gonna be here, so I might be by myself. But tonight, man, we're just gonna get into some small business talk. So if anyone joins, you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and pull those in and let's talk. So I'll tell you what's been going on my end, small business wise, the machine business. We have been doing quite a few things, man. We're moving on now, 19 locations, and hopefully Tuesday, fingers crossed, man, we will have our 20th location, and this is will actually be a big account that we are in the midst of negotiating. So, like I said, fingers crossed. This is a location will have over 1,000 people. Major for us, be a huge move for us, and this is a college actually. So. Um, Fingers crossed, man. I mean, we feel good about it. We think that we'll be in a good position to provide the proper services for them. And as far as for us, that I mean, that's a huge plus to our portfolio. But I kind of wanted to talk about what's been going on in the world of vending, some things that we are learning along the way, because like I told you guys before, we don't know everything, right? Like we're learning on an ongoing basis. And so one of the major things that we learned is about our sales and use tax, right? Like, so we've been operating for a couple of years now, and one thing that was brought to our attention was like, yo, we haven't been paying our sales and use tax, which is you have to pay out monthly. So this was a huge eye opener for us, and so we got with our accountant, and he gave us kind of like the law of the land, and we opened up that sales account, sales and tax account, and kind of just had that major overview of what needed to be done. And but what came with that is that, hey, we technically are taxed on every single product that we sell in the machine, right? And because of that, we have to increase our prices. So um, our prices, our business model is fair pricing. Like we want to make sure that we are charging a fair price to everyone, and no matter where they are, right? Like, of course, some locations there we tend to charge more because of the location, but ultimately our goal is to have fair pricing, right? We don't want to price gouge. We don't want to charge somebody $5 for something that we buy for 50 cents. Right? Like, yes, in some cases you can do that and get away with it, but that's just not what we want to do, right? Like, we want to be fair in our pricing. We want to be aware of where we're pricing. Like, for example, one of our locations is a senior living facility, right? So we know that most of the people here are in that location are on a fixed income. Um, and we just want to be fair with our pricing. Now, to be fair, when we came into that location, the previous owner prices were way too low, right? Like low to the point to where it's very difficult for us to come in and turn a good profit, no matter how good the location is. And so we did some analyzation of that location and some analysis, and we realized this: that location is doing great, right? Doing great in sales, great in traffic. It's a location where people have to eat, and they don't have the transportation to go to the store all the time, right? Like, so they may go to the grocery store once or twice, once a week, but that other time they're not leaving for real, right? Like most of the people are there, and so they use the snack and soda and snack machines, and so we realized that like, hey, the pricing was just way too low here. And so we slowly increased our pricing, right? So when we first got there, a bag of chips, I think, were being sold for like 55 or 60 cents, right? And that is just extremely low. And just full transparency, most of the time we can get a bag of chips for somewhere in the 30 cent to 35 cent range, right? And if we're doing just our regular model, if we 2x that, then the bare minimum you should be charging for a bag of chips is like 70 cents, 65, 70 cents. And so we had to make that necessary change. Even drinks were being sold at 85 cent there, and um, unless you're just catching a good deal on your day to day, if you were to go and buy sodas in our business, you're buying sodas for anywhere between 45 to 50 cent a can, right? And so we know that in all of our other locations, we're selling 12-ounce cans for a dollar. And so we had to increase those prices there as well. And so one thing that we were able to do to kind of alleviate the confusion and to kind of ease people into increasing the prices was we added card readers to that location. The previous owner did not have card readers. He was really a cash only business. And so we were able to walk in there and add card readers and immediately saw a different impact, right? Now we noticed that this location, still to this day, even though the card readers are on the machine, we see that they purchase about 90% in cash, which is not a normal thing, right? Not a normal thing. Most people in their scenario would easily easily use that card reader more than they would use cash, right? And that's how it is in most cases. Most cases you kind of balance out somewhere between 65 to 70% card, 30 to 35% cash. That's normally how it goes. And depends on the type of location, but for the most part, that's what you can expect. But here, I mean, 90% of our sales and transactions are cash, and the other 10%, card or some form of tap. So it was surprising, but however, that allowed us to A, keep up with better inventory and also give options for people who just don't have that. So, yes, it's only 10% using it, but that's 10% of people that probably was not gonna use that machine before because they came in with the card, not knowing, that it was not a card machine, it was a cash only machine, right? So, those were some improvements that we were able to make in order to increase pricing. But now that we have this sales use and sales tax thing is we have to increase our prices everywhere just to kind of make sure that our profit margins don't really go down as much. We kind of try to operate anywhere between a 55 and 60% profit margin. Um, and that's just, from what we sell, and then that breaks down even more because we have overhead, right? We have storage. We have to, actually shop for these goods and products. We have, insurance that we have to pay. We have, what else do we pay? We have our credit card bills that we have to pay, gas, food, things like that. So, our overhead is not crazy, but I mean, there are a lot of things that we still have to pay for, and within that, even some of our subscriptions and QuickBooks, things of that nature, we have to pay for those things, and so we need to operate at that 55 to 60% margin on our goods, so we can see some of that on the back end, for where we're at. And so, because we have to go up in our pricing, we learn about getting tax exempt from some of our, wholesale suppliers. So, like places like Sam's and BJ's and Costco, we were able to go in, and because we did our proper, went through the proper channels, now we can go there and buy goods exempt, right? So we can go in there where we normally will spend $500. If the total comes up to $500, we pay $500 and not $550 or whatever the taxes are in your state or city, for that. So that's one way that we're able to kind of get ahead of the game a little bit. But ultimately, those are just changes that we have to make that we learn later on in the game, right? And so I say all that to say this business, along with any other business that you're in, there are going to be ongoing changes and ongoing opportunities for you to learn. And if you don't take those opportunities to learn, you will fall off. And so I employ everyone to make sure that you are learning the most information that you possibly can about the business that you're in so you won't get behind, right? Like you don't want to be behind. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about is like how do we, because we're getting in a space now, right, for our business where we're too big, right? And I know this sounds crazy, but in the vending business, one thing that's super important is that you have to learn how to keep your locations as close as possible to your home base. Right now, for us, we have locations in about seven. I mean, let's see. We have Fulton County, Clayton County, DeKalb County, Cobb County, Douglas, Fayette, Cherokee. I think that's it. I think we're in 7 counties. That's a lot, right? That's a lot of counties. It's ideally you want to be very tight knit. You want to be close. So if there's a problem, I'll give you the perfect example. Um, one of our machines, we have a caliber collision for one of our locations. And it's a body shop for those that don't know what that is. But um, I got a service call. Something was going on with the machine. Right, they were trying to dispense a Monster Energy drink, and for whatever reason, it kept taking their money. Right. And so the way that the problem was described to me, it immediately sounded like, oh, it's either a bill jam or a coin jam. Right. That's what normally will happen if someone puts money inside a machine and it doesn't dispense a drink, right? So they'll either put in, quarters and the quarters don't work or the change doesn't work, or they'll put in dollar bills and that doesn't work. And so um, once that was told to me, it was like, all right, cool, we'll come out there, check it out. Checked it out. And the funny thing was, every time I put money in, I got a drink. And so I couldn't replicate the problem, which is one of the biggest issues with trying to service soda machines and snack machines, right? Like if I can't duplicate what you did or replicate what you did, a lot of times it's hard to fix the problem, right? And so found out that it didn't have anything to do with the bill acceptor. It didn't have anything to do with the coin mechanism. The issue was the machine was still set for 12-ounce cans as opposed to 16-ounce cans, right? It's just a small setting. This particular machine was believe it's a Dixie Narco. I just needed to. It's a shimless one, so all I had to do was like do a little shifting, go from a 2 to a 5. These numbers may not make a lot of sense to you, but people that are dealing with soda machines know exactly what I'm talking about. So I just had to shift it, and once I shifted, it was proper and made use of, to dispense 16-ounce cans, and they didn't have a problem ever since then. But the issue was I ended up going out there twice because the first time I went out there, I went there to repair what I thought was a faulty bill acceptor or faulty coin mechanism. So I went out there, did my due diligence. I was able to, once I fixed those two things, I was able to put in, $5 and dispense 5 sodas. I was able to put in $5 worth of change and dispense sodas. And so for me, that's kind of like my viewpoint of, okay, this is good to go now. Right. I was able to solve whatever issue this was, and I'm leaving. And a day later I get another call. And so I say all that to say you want to have your locations tight knit, right? Ideally, you want to be within 30 miles, but I wanna go a little bit deeper and say, if you're just starting this business out, you come out better being anywhere between 15 and 20 minutes away from your warehouse, right? If you can find a way to do that, you'll be in a better position because you can always get to where you need to go in a timely manner, right? The furthest location we have from where we're based, our home base is in South Fulton. Um, we have a location in Woodstock. So if anybody that is familiar with the Metro Atlanta area, just think airport to Woodstock. That is a long way. right? And we also have a location in Swanee. So think airport, Swanee. That's a long way, right? And then if you go south, we have one in Peachtree City. So that's not as bad. However, it's still, it's a nice little distance. And so you want to keep those things in mind when you're building out your route. Ideally, you want to keep things within that 15 to 30-mile radius if you can, because you'll keep yourself off the road often, right? You don't want to be on the road driving a long time because you're taking away from other things that you could be doing. And also, if you need to service anything, you can kind of get there in a timely manner. So I say all that to say we're in a position now where we have a lot and we need to trim the fat, right? And so with trimming the fat, we're looking at three things, right? We're looking to see like, okay, is this location really serving us, right? A lot of times in this business, you can get emotionally attached to a location just because like the location could have been like your first location, the first people that gave you a shot, or the first people to like you really like the people there. At the end of the day, is that location making business for you, making money for you? And if it's not making a significant amount for you, whatever you deem to be significant, you have to make a choice. And so for us, yes, we have 19 locations. I can say probably about a good 4 or 5 of those locations we have to do something about, right? They're just not serving us well, and they're too far at that, right? We have some locations up 85 that are just not doing well. And honestly, we can't provide the service that we need to provide to them simply because they're just too far out, right? It'll be different if they were doing like high volume. They're just not doing high volume. And it doesn't make sense for us to make some changes, necessary changes to that location because of the volume that they're currently doing, right? In some cases, adding a card reader to a machine can boost sales immediately. However, some things that you need to be on the lookout for before you add a card reader to a machine is like, hey, is this the type of location that deserves a card reader? And this sounds funny, but you have to think about it, right? Like locations like mechanic shops. If if the machine is not in a place where customers can use the machine, and we're only talking about employees, then you're looking at like, hey, this is a place where 5 to 10 people are going to see this machine every day. Does it make sense for you to put a card reader in that machine? You got to think about it, right? Now, if they are already doing, $50 a week, then yeah, you may want to bring in a card reader there because that can definitely increase sales. But if you're in a location that's struggling to do $50 a month, it may not be in your best interest to start adding a lot of things there, right? First, fine tune and see what's going on. Is it the snack selection that's not working for them? Is it just volume? Are they not buying? Is it pricing? You have to find out because a lot of times people think they need a vending machine in their business and they really don't, right? Like there's some office parks that don't need it because they're surrounded by food options, right? It's not the best option for people to have vending. So these are things that you have to think about. And for us, unfortunately for us, the locations that are not doing the best for us are locations that we purchase from other people. They came as a package deal. So these are not locations that we sought out on our own. These are locations that, they came with we bought out someone's business, and these are some locations that came along with it that just are not the best locations, right? But they were part of the package deal. And so ultimately we just have to make a move and figure out how to move these locations. And one thing that I've learned is that just because they don't work for you don't necessarily mean that they won't work for somebody else, right? As long as you're presenting that person with all of the facts, all of the right information, all the numbers, all of that, then you're in a good space to move on from that business, right? Or move on from that location. It's just important to let the person that's purchasing it know exactly what's going on. All of the locations that we are looking to move on from are locations that don't have card readers. So, hey, that is an immediate um, win or value add, potential value add for somebody coming in and buying. Like, hey, all of these locations want card readers. We just didn't want to add them because we're not in a position to service those locations the best. Hey, maybe if you add a card reader, you'll see better success than we did, right? We know that we're moving on from locations that can possibly be better. We're just not valuing them in that way, right? Like we see that they did this amount in the time that we've had them, and we are banking that they're not going to do much more even if we add something to it, right? But we could be wrong in that assessment, right? But it's just what we're deciding to do at the time. So we have to move on at some point, and that's what we're going to plan to do. Right now, we have 19 locations, soon to be 20. Going to go ahead and put that in the air, but we want to condense that down to maybe about 12 to 15. And once we get to that 12 to 15, we can really fine tune those 12 to 15 and get those rolling the way that we know that they can roll even better. And then we'll look to add on more if we need to. Or, you know, the one gem that I can tell you about the vending business is that the only way to truly be successful in the vending business, build up successful routes and then sell those routes and then build up more successful routes and then sell those routes, right? Like, so your business can keep going as long as you build up a solid core of routes and then sell those routes, right? Like you and go from there. But uh that's that's the goal. That's the goal. And so that's what we're going to try to do here. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you have any questions, make sure you shoot us a DM, hit us in the comments, and let us know what type of talk you want to do. So this is the first time we did some small business talk. We're going to make sure we do these a little more often to kind of keep you guys up to date with what's going on. Maybe we do this like a weekly thing where it gives you updates of what's going on in our business world every week for you to enjoy and for you to ask as many questions as possible. And so this is the first one, and we'll see you on the next go round.